So you own an SSR Jr roof panel machine, huh? Check out this video to learn how to do a width changeover. Hello, this is Tim LaGuardia, Assistant Service Manager here at New Tech Machinery. Today I'll be showing you how to do a width changeover on an SSR Jr panel machine. As you can see, here at New Tech Machinery, we practice a lot of safety. So when you first come to your machine, you're gonna have all the covers and lids on it. You have warning labels on the shear. You will be removing the lids to do this, so please work in front of the shear, work behind the shear, but never work through the shear. We do place the proper lockout tagout on the power plug for the machine so that when you're working on the machine, no one can plug power into it. Now that your machine is safe and locked out, we'll proceed to remove the covers. We'll be following the steps in the manual. You can find the manual by clicking on the link below. Next, we will be setting the entry guides first. So you'll need to cut a piece of material of what you'll be going to, cut the corners off, and feed it into the guides. In this case, we'll be going from 20-inch setup down to 18-inch wide coil. So cut a piece of material so it's easy enough to handle, and then insert it into the guides. Once you've inserted a piece of material into the guides, you will loosen the entry guide collar with a 3/16 T handle and slide it into the material. Just create some slight pressure on the outside, not too hard, because you want the material to slide in and out nice and easy with no side-to-side movement. When setting your width adjustment in your panel machine, always keep in mind that the right side of the machine is stationary. It does not move. The only part that's going to be adjusting is the left side. It's the side that moves in and out. Once you've set the entry guides to the new material you'll be going to, the next step is to start setting the rails. So we're going to start with L1 and we're going to move it in to the B position, which in this case for this profile is going to be on the 1-inch mark. Loosen the D bolts on L1. That will free up the section on the rails. Then gently slide it in until the outside of your entry guide, looking straight down, will line up on the 1-inch mark. And then tighten up your D-bolt on the entry guide side. Once you've tightened up the D-bolt, now you will take your tape measure once again and measure from your rail to the string. So we're gonna snug our D-bolt back up. Once you get the L1 section set, you will now loosen the D-bolts on the L2 section and move it in to where it's flush on the inside with the spacer. Loosen the D-bolts on section L2. You will slide the rail in evenly until it's flush with the spacer. You'll notice there's a spacer right here. So we're going flush with the inside of the angle and the outside here of this spacer. Once that's flush right there, go ahead and snug up the first D-bolt. And then once again, you're gonna get your tape measure out and we're going to measure to make sure that it's in there square. Which we are. And then you could go ahead and snug up your last D-bolt on this rail. Once you've completed L2 rail, now you can move on to the L3 rail and line it up as well. Start by loosening the D-bolts on L3. Slide in the rail. And in this case, there is no spacer here, so you're just gonna be going flush on the inside from rail to rail. Once you get that flush right there, snug up your first D-bolt and then measure. Ah, that looks good. Once you get your measurement right on each end, go ahead and tighten up your last D-bolt. Once you move the left side over and you're all finished, next you can go ahead and sheet feed a piece of material in there about 4 or 5 feet long. And we're gonna run that up to the shear dies so we can now move the left side shear dies over with it. Keep in mind, we won't have to adjust the right side shear dies because they're already in line. We did not move anything on the right side, so we'll just be adjusting the left. At this time, it is safe to remove your lockout tagout and plug in the machine. Once you have everything set and the material is fed into the machine, you now will have to reset your entry drum rollers. And to do that, you will need a 3/16 T handle, and you will need to loosen the collars that capture either side of the roller. First, you will loosen the inside collar of the outside roller, and then slide the roller in until it's approximately flush with the outside of the material. just run the collars back up to where they just touch the roller. When you're done with there, you'll need to just recenter the center one. And it doesn't need to be exact. You can just kind of eyeball it to your best. Loosen the collar and slide it in till it's approximately centered, and then tighten the collar back up. And then do the same with the other collar, loosen it, run it in till it just touches the drum roller, and snug it back up. Go ahead and start feeding your material. Take your time getting it through the machine. Just keep feeding it in, taking your time, making sure everything is set properly. Once you get right in front of the shear, about 5 or 6 inches, stop, and then that's when we'll go ahead and move our left side dies over. Once you get the material up to the shear, this is a good time to go ahead and stop, unplug your machine, put the lockout tagout back on. Now you'll be ready to align your dies. Please keep in mind, now we're gonna be working around the shear, so always work in front of the shear or behind the shear, never work through the shear. First, we're gonna start with the outside die first. So go ahead and loosen it up and remove the bolts. And just like when you're doing the profile changeover, you're just gonna simply slide the die over and eye it to where it lines up in the center of the panel. And then just finger tighten them, so that way it makes it easier to align the material and let the material align the die. Once the outside die is set, it'll make it simple to align the inside. So once again, we're going to remove the bolts. Please watch your material that's sitting here. It is sharp, so you don't want to scrape your hand on it. Here, we're just going to simply slide it over and align it with the outside one that we know is already close, and just make sure that you put the holes in the bolts in the same holes that you did on the outside, so everything looks the same. And then once again, we're just going to finger tighten the bolts. Okay, now that we got the dies moved over and aligned, now we're gonna go ahead and slowly tap, get the material through the shear. Take your time when doing it and keeping an eye on it, make sure it stays aligned. Once the lockout tagout is in place, now we'll go ahead and make any fine adjustments and tighten up the shear dies. I kind of press down on it a little bit to make sure that it's sitting flat, and then just snug up the die. Once the inside die is tightened up, we could go ahead and do the same to the outside die. Once you have your dies tightened up, this is a good time to go ahead and do a test cut. So we're gonna pull our pin and cut our material. And then you can examine the cut for any imperfections and then make any side-to-side adjustments with your blade to create a better cut. Once you've made your initial cut, this is where you can see if your outside die needs to be fine-tuned or not. So make sure that this die is back away from the inside die, about a 32nd of an inch, just for clearance, so that way when your material comes through, it doesn't snag on anything, and then proceed to tighten it back up. Once you fine-tune your shear dies, and you're ready to run the material again, take your lockout tagout off, plug the machine back in, and then slowly bump the machine forward. We're just making sure that the material's not gonna catch on any dies. And we cleared beautifully. So now you're ready to run this piece out. Once you've ran out your piece, now you can inspect it and measure for the dimensions to make sure that they're correct, and also to make sure it snaps together good. Now you're ready to put your covers back on and start running your job. That concludes our video on how to do a width changeover on an SSR Junior machine. If you have any questions, or if you need to see a video on how to do a profile changeover for an SSR Junior machine, please see the link below. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in our next video.